Communists and socialists often use the lofty idea of achieving social justice and equality to rally mass support, especially among the underprivileged and young people. The Chinese Communist Party, for example, promised equality by eliminating social classes. During the Mao Zedong era, the CCP eliminated private ownership and confiscated all private land, property, and businesses in the name of equality and realizing common prosperity. And the CCP assumed the role of redistributing wealth to the masses. It is this redistribution that has caused perpetual inequality. Hello everyone, welcome to Lay's Real Talk. Shanghai was called the Paris of the Orient in the 1920s and 30s. The city had many mansions and garden homes built by wealthy Chinese and Europeans before the revolution. It also had some modern apartment buildings that were not seen in other parts of Asia at the time. Even though communists always call capitalists and their wealth evil, the CCP redistributed the confiscated properties to regime leaders as rewards after taking power. Chinese historian Yang Kui-sung once described how the CCP allocated housing units to its leaders in Shanghai based on an official document. The 1956 document, now in the Shanghai Municipal Archives, stipulated that leaders at the very top could have a luxury residence with a large garden, with a space of at least 2,200 square feet. The next level of officials could have a luxury home of about 2,000 square feet with a garden. The next level up could enjoy a premium residential apartment no less than 2,000 square feet. And the next level got a semi-detached residence. There were over a dozen levels, and the privileges of each were spelled out. So the Chinese communist leaders not only moved into these luxury garden homes or apartments that belonged to the evil capitalists, they also mimicked their lifestyle and lived like them. Depending on their administrative level, top communist leaders were provided with secretaries, guards, chauffeurs, attendants, babysitters, chefs, and nurses, as well as personal cars. Moreover, communist leaders enjoyed something that wealthy capitalists didn't have and couldn't have. It was something called 特供, meaning special supply or privileged offerings. Top-ranking officials were supplied with scarce commodities, high-quality produce, and imported goods that ordinary Chinese couldn't even dream of having. After the CCP took power in 1949, a food supply center was set up at number 34 Xila Lane in Beijing. It was officially called number 34 Supply Center. It supplied tobacco, alcohol, sweets, and food to senior leaders. Only officials at the deputy ministerial level or above could enter the place. In May 1960, a special store was set up for top leaders at the vice premier level and up, on the fourth floor of the Beijing department store. Only people with a special leadership permit could access it. From 1959 to 1961, China entered a 3-year famine, and more than 30 million ordinary people died of starvation. Food was scarce, and hunger struck every family. The special stores for the leaders, however, were stocked with domestic and foreign products, from seafood, fruits, chocolate, local delicacies to imported brandy, whiskey, Russian caviar, and French foie gras. One could also find imported household appliances, watches, perfumes, fabrics, and jewelry in the store. Not only were the prices low, but the shoppers could purchase up to 40,000 yuan worth of goods on credit. Back then, there were no credit cards. Everything was cash. How much was a 40,000 yuan credit line worth? That was 133 Chinese workers' average annual salary in the 1960s. It's roughly $2 million in today's money. It means that you could go to a store and shop up to $2 million worth of goodies on credit because you are a key CCP leader. You see, the CCP may have eliminated the wealthy elite class in China, but it made itself the ultimate privileged class. Even though Communist Party members don't own any of the state property, they have access to all of it. all the national resources are at their disposal. These stores were set up not to be profitable, but to serve the leaders. By the time Mao died, no Chinese families had any assets, let alone wealth. China was left a community of common poverty, not common prosperity. Then came paramount leader Deng Xiaoping, who declared, "To have money is glorious." In the first 10 years of reform, from 1979 to 1989, Chinese people worked hard and lifted themselves out of the common poverty. Then Tiananmen Square massacre happened, and it was a major setback. After 1997, under the name of restructuring state-owned entities, the CCP privatized hundreds of thousands of enterprises. CCP cadres at all levels assumed the roles of general managers, CEOs, board members, and chairmen of these companies. They became the owners of enterprises because they were Communist Party cadres. At the same time, their CCP status gave them a unique advantage for making fortunes in the communist-style market economy. Later, China joined the WTO and established its financial market. As foreign investments poured in, CCP leaders took advantage of their position. They became gloriously rich, as Deng Xiaoping had wished. Generally speaking, after the CCP seized power in 1949, it undertook two major wealth redistributions. The first was to confiscate all private property across the country in the 1950s. The second was to privatize state-owned property nominally owned by the people to its privileged cadres in the 1990s. Both redistributions created wealth disparity and perpetuated inequality. The first redistribution of wealth turned China into one of the poorest countries in the world. Chinese citizens suffered from famine and poverty. The second redistribution in the 1990s generated more billionaires at the fastest speed ever in human history, while the bulk of the country's population didn't get an equitable share. During the past 40 years, Chinese people have worked hard, and China has become the world's second largest economy. But did the hardworking people get their equitable share? Premier Li Keqiang said this last May.
我们人均年收入的平均水平是3万元人民币，但是有6亿人每个月的收入也就是1000元，1000元，在一个中等城市可能租房都困难。
By the way, 600 million people is 45% of Chinese population, and 1,000 yuan is about $150. According to livingcost.org, a website that calculates living costs across the world, the average Chinese cost of living per month is $752. When over 40% of a country makes only $150 or less a month, and your national average cost of living is 5 times that amount, the government has a serious wealth disparity problem. However, China has generated the most billionaires globally, over 1,000 of them, more than the U.S., India, and Germany combined. And it happened at an unprecedented speed. According to the Global Wealth Report 2016, released by the Credit Suisse Institute, from 2000 to 2016, global ultra-high net worth wealth doubled. That's an increase of 216%, while the same number increased by 100 times in China. So how did so many Chinese get so rich so fast? Was it because of the CCP's great economic policy? Or was it the result of unfair redistribution of wealth within a state capitalist system? It's a good question we should all think about, as the current communist leader is now propagating a third wealth redistribution to achieve common prosperity. It's obvious that the first two redistributions did not work and instead have impoverished more people. So, if someone tells you that socialism and communism can build a better society and achieve equality, I'd say they're deceiving themselves as well as others. Because it hasn't happened yet, not in China, not in the Soviet Union, not in Cuba, not in North Korea, and it won't happen anywhere else. That's all for today. You can watch my previous video on why Beijing has so much money to burn and why Xi Jinping doesn't trust capitalists. See you soon.